Hey, what's up? My name is Jose Duncan Jr., and I would like to welcome you to the Unnatural Born Leader podcast. Hey, what's up? Welcome to episode 29 of the Unnatural Born Leader podcast. Thank you for everyone who's tuning into this podcast, and I want to say thank you to everyone who tuned into the previous episode, Light on Your Feet and Adjusting the Change, where I talked about being able to adjust and pivot to changing situations and not allowing circumstances to make all of the decisions, instead using your knowledge and understanding of what's going on around you and to be able to adjust and pivot and move accordingly so you can keep moving forward. So thank you for that. And this week, I want to talk about a concept that is so prevalent, very common, and in my research and my observation, I'm realizing that this concept is something we all struggle with. And not until I started actually doing the research and understanding what this really is did I realize I've been struggling with this personally for a very long time. And some of you may or may not know, I am currently in the final stages of publishing my book, my first book that's coming out this October. And the entire concept of what the book is really about is brought back to this other concept. But in my process of writing the book, I did not realize yet, that I was pretty much speaking about this other concept. I just didn't know how to word it. I didn't know what it was. I wasn't identifying it yet. But recently, in a podcast I listened to of another supporting host and another friend who's also posted about this same concept, that I realized that now I need to look within and start doing my research on this. This can be something that's very real, and it is something that's very real. And now I am comfortable speaking about it and my journey with it and really what I found in my research and how it correlates to what we deal with as individuals who are self-developing and also as leaders who are struggling to get ourselves inspired and to impact and add the value to other people's lives. So this concept is called the Imposter Syndrome. Some of you may have heard of it. Some of you may have not. For me, it wasn't a common term in my vocabulary up until recently. And this imposter syndrome is this feeling of I'm not good enough. It's this feeling of being an imposter in your own life. An undeserving feeling of being somewhere that you feel like you're not supposed to be there. You're out of your league. This is too big for you. And by definition, the imposter syndrome is a collection of feelings of inadequacy. And these feelings are somehow persisting despite evidence that you are adequate at this thing, right? Despite the success, despite what's going on, despite what you've done already, what you've proved, you still have these overwhelming feelings of not being adequate. You don't deserve what you're receiving, or you don't, in many ways, you don't celebrate or acknowledge successes that are happening in your life. And when I heard about this and started doing more of my research, it really shocked me. I had one of those moments where I'm like, damn, this is what I've been dealing with. And if I knew earlier that this was a real thing and I was able to conceptualize this early on, maybe I could have started working on it earlier. And I just had one of those epiphanies, those moments where you're like, I get it now. And we are living for those moments where we feel like, I get it now. Because in those moments, we have identified what it is that's hurting or bothering us or impacting us. And we now have seen it. We know what it looks like. We know what it sounds like. And now we can work on things that to do to get past it or to work within it. So this imposter syndrome is something I've had a personal challenge with. And in my book, I speak about a lot about self-disappointment and self-punishment and going through this phase of depriving myself of some of the most essential feelings of happiness because I was raised in a tough love environment and I learned how to put that tough love onto myself. And I had all these feelings of punishment and also all these feelings of wanting to be really good and how to, how they met in the middle, and I always felt conflicted within myself. It was imposter syndrome. I know I've had trouble with this because had a lot of success in my life, or a lot of small wins, you can call it. Everyone's idea of success is clearly different, but I've had a lot of great moments, some bad moments, but some great moments of achievement and accomplishment, or I'm doing something really well. And I know I've felt imposter syndrome because I've done these things and told no one. I told no one. I would win awards and say I'm lucky. I would achieve certain heights in football and get a lot of compliments and activist as act as if I'm very modest, or it didn't really matter to me, or what's next, right? This attitude of I did well, but you know, it was because of all these other external factors. It wasn't really because I was good enough, right? And most recently, I can equate this to when I won the award for Rookie Personal Trainer of the Year. It was a big award for being one of the top rookies in the company as a personal trainer. And when I got the award, I live with my sister, and I didn't even tell her that I had received this award. I was getting 2 awards, and I didn't tell people I was getting the award. I didn't make an announcement. I didn't tell my dad. And I just don't know why I did it. And now looking back at it, I don't know if I would have told him, even if I knew what this imposter syndrome thing was. I don't think I was in a space to actually tell people about my successes or tell people I'm doing something well. And I just can't shake it, right? You ever had those feelings of feeling like you are not good enough and you just can't shake it? So that's really what was going through my mind at that time. And I needed to understand or reflect on these feelings. And that's what led me to writing the book, which is going to be hopefully coming out in October, talking about this idea of living and overcoming self-punishment and also living with high expectations. So why do we deal with imposter syndrome? Why? Why is it a thing? Why is it relevant in our lives? Right? We deal with imposter syndrome because, truthfully, everything starts at a young age. When we're trying to find out where this imposter syndrome comes from, it comes from this chronic feeling of self-doubt. And I use the word chronic because chronic implies that it's a lifelong feeling. It's a continuous feeling of something. So this lifelong feeling of self-doubt is what leads us to imposter syndrome. Is this feeling like we're frauds? You know that feeling that you're good enough, but the people that you're serving or trying to give value to, you don't feel like you have enough value to give them, and eventually they're gonna find out that you don't know everything you think you know, right? It's hard for me to even conceptualize this or put this in the right context because it's something I continue to struggle with. And as a young man, as someone who's consistent in my growth, and someone who considers himself a leader, I can see how this imposter syndrome is always going to be here. But this feeling like we're frauds, like we're going to get found out, is essentially what imposter syndrome is around. This is why we feel those things, right? You ever had that feeling of you not deserving something? How many times have you felt like you don't deserve something that's happened good for you? It's normal. It's normal. We all have felt it. We all have felt it. And I can't tell you how many times I felt that. So it's very normal to feel like you don't deserve something. You feel like karma's gonna catch up to you, or you didn't work hard enough, or this can't be right because of some other events in your life. I've been there. We all have been there. It's normal. So what does this imposter syndrome look like? Where does it come from? What the hell is this thing? I'm going to break that down for you now. And research of psychology and understanding how the human mind works, understanding how we develop as children to young teenagers to adults, what I have found is a lot of this preconceived notions about ourselves or things we believe in are a result of what our parents taught us or what we learned from our parents without them even thinking that they were teaching us, right? Our observant skill sets that we have learned from people around us, especially from our elders. So when we're talking about anything involving how we think as an adult, we have to stem it back to how we were raised. So imposter syndrome can start at a young age. The foundation for it can start at a young age. And I'm sure we all have felt a lot of these things. A parent making you feel like you are superior to another person. And my parents do it. A lot of black parents who are immigrants do it. And they don't mean to make us feel superior, but instead they make a clear separation from us and other children. They're focused on us. They want us to do well. They don't want us to fall in the traps of hanging out with, I guess, less superior kids, right? Don't hang around those bad kids. Don't hang around this person. Be better than that person. Those type of things that our parents tell us out of the kindness of their heart, and they mean well. And the intentions behind those statements are well put and reasonable, right? But we can grow up to have this feeling of superiority to other people. And this can lead to a lot of constant critiquing from parents and teachers and things like that. So even if we're on the side of the non-superior side of feeling inferior, and we're being constantly critiqued by different people, our elders, and we are being labeled by our elders and being called, this and that. This kid is a bad kid. This kid can't focus. This kid is smart. This kid is creative. And now we're giving our children and we're giving the youth titles. We're putting them in these boxes and we're setting limitations on them when we don't even realize it. And we do it as adults too. We love to categorize people and put them in boxes and make it simple for ourselves so we can call someone something. It's a lot to call someone more than one thing, right? So it could be easier to just say, he's creative, she's not. He's smart, he's not. He's a extrovert, she's an introvert, and have these labels and really allow those labels to affect us, become part of who we are, and then we start saying these things about ourselves. And this can lead to imposter syndrome. Because if I'm a natural extrovert and I'm in an environment where it looks like a lot of introverts are, and I can tell this environment is very conducive for introvert type personalities, and they're doing well, and they've been doing well before I got here, and I, an extrovert, insert myself into that environment, I can feel like I don't belong, even if what I bring to the table is a lot of value. That imposter syndrome is going to have you thinking, why are you here? You don't deserve to be here. This is not your space. And I want to emphasize the fact that you have a lot of value to bring to this space. And you have brought a lot of value already. But there's a constant feeling inside that you don't deserve to be here. And that starts at a young age. Being told to not be certain places, or you shouldn't be certain places, or you shouldn't be around certain people. And this all can lead to these four things: anxiety, self-doubt, fear, and failure. And these things are very common when we're talking about where does imposter syndrome come from and what exactly does it look like. I want to encourage you to look within, practice some self-awareness, or even observe your friends and your family and people around you. Who has that I can't fail attitude? Do you have that I can't fail attitude? And not the I can't fail attitude of I can't fail because I'm very ambitious to do well. It's the I can't fail because if I fail, people might find out that I wasn't good enough in the beginning. That type of I can't fail attitude. Can you identify a friend or a family member who's like that? Who may have projected those type of personalities in the past or currently? What about that feeling of feeling fake? This idea of giving energy that we know more than we actually know. Being unworthy of promotions or praise from people. I know I've done it. I've been in a position where I felt fake. When I started as a personal trainer in a big box gym, I had a lot of information and knowledge and experience from playing football and being under structured strength and conditioning programs my whole life. So I had enough to teach. I had enough to show someone how to exercise and take care of their bodies. But I constantly felt like I was fake. I wasn't as knowledgeable as my fellow trainers. I wasn't as smooth of the tongue with anatomy terms and physiological terms and functional training and not understanding all things about the body. I wasn't educated on all things about the body. When in retrospect, a trainer should know all things about the body, or they should know enough. And I always felt inadequate in that department, but I believed that I was a good trainer. But I always felt fake, as if I was walking around with an energy that I knew more than I really knew. And it caught up to me at different points, but my intentions were always pure and well when I'm approaching helping a client. So that took me from not knowing and feeling fake into actually applying myself and learning from others. And that's something we're going to be talking about later in the podcast. So another way to identify what this imposter syndrome sounds like or looks like is to realize when we are associating our success to luck, right? Or a bunch of external factors. If I win a lot of money or I do something that brings me a lot of income, yeah, man, I got lucky. I didn't, thank God, right? Thank God, That's the first thing we say, and which is very relevant and understanding to say. Thank God, right? We've gotten to this great place, and we want to thank God because we want to thank the powers that we do not have, right? And we associate our success with all external things. You know what? Yeah, everything out there came in alignment for me. Everything worked out perfectly, and it really wasn't me. It was this person or this thing, and we never take credit for the success we have. I know what that feels like. It's real. Numerous of times in my life, I did not take credit for things that happened well for me because I'm afraid of people saying I have an ego or people judging me for actually taking credit for my own successes. It sounds crazy now. It sounds crazy now to think about it, but it's normal. And when we're in it, it's very real. It's very real. Imposter syndrome is a very real thing. And some of these concepts I'm talking about, I know if you've felt in your life before, I know you've experienced. And I know you've experienced this more than one time. So this thing is real. It's here to stay. It's not something you overcome and get rid of it in your life. I don't think that's very possible. I do think we all will experience it at different times on different capacities, or some people may experience it once in a while, but we all will experience this thing, and it's not going away. It's not going anywhere. We live in a very connected social media era where we have a lot of content, a lot of opinions, a lot of ideas, and we want to share them. We are in the period of sharing with our friends and family and people we may or may not know. We feel compelled to share things, right? And we're in this era, I included, I love sharing things. And then we have this other side of this same media and social media age where we hold back ourselves from sharing things because we feel like it's not good enough. We feel like it's not good in comparison to what other people are sharing. So we hold back ourselves from sharing it because we feel like we don't deserve to share this or it's not good enough, right? This is very normal feelings. So I don't want to paint this picture that the imposter syndrome is not real. It's very real. But I'm a solution-based person. I'm a solution-based leader. This podcast is about building the foundation of leadership and understanding oneself better and how to navigate those things. So solution-based mindset always has me asking the question, what can I do about it? So what can you do about imposter syndrome? The first thing I think has worked for me in many ways, and which I've learned through my research works for a lot of other people, is we must be self-aware in all things. The first start is self-awareness. We need to identify these thoughts and these feelings. When these things come up and we're realizing we're acting through imposter syndrome, we need to stop and identify exactly what it sounds like, where your thoughts are going, and what's going on with you. I mean, if you need to write this down and break it down the moment you feel these things, get a pen and paper, open your phone, open your notes, write down what you're feeling, what thoughts are going through your head, what does it sound like, where are you going mentally with this, right? You need to identify these feelings. And once you have identified these feelings, I urge you to normalize it. I'm emphasizing, damn, my light just fell. Sorry about that, guys. I'm emphasizing that this imposter syndrome is normal so we can normalize it. We don't need to treat this as if it's shouldn't be there or it shouldn't have a place and prevalence in our lives. It always will. So normalize these feelings of inadequacy. You're always going to feel like you're not good enough because there's always going to be someone that is slightly better or doing it differently that you are doing. So remind yourself that it's okay to not know everything. It's okay to not be good all the time. It's okay. It's okay to feel like you don't deserve to be a place. It's okay to feel like you're not good enough because there's ways to use that feeling of not being good enough or not being okay or feeling like an imposter to advance your life, to advance your career, to advance your personal growth. One thing that has really worked for some people when I was doing my research, which I have not tried myself yet, is having an open dialogue about this imposter syndrome. This is my open dialogue. Talking to you guys on this podcast is my open dialogue about the imposter syndrome. I want to let you know that it's very real in my life. I deal with it every day. But how can we use it to get better? How can we use this? Because life is very much 90% of what you do about things that happen to you or happen around you or happening currently. It is less about what actually happened. So break the silence of imposter syndrome. Break the silence of I'm not good enough. There's a lot of people in this world who can't get out of their own way. I used to have conversations about this when I first became a trainer and working with my clients and teaching them fitness and healthy living and how to transform their habits to live a more healthier and fulfilled life through fitness. And a lot of it was these clients knew exactly what they needed to do. They had the income to do it. They had the resources to do it, but something kept holding them back from doing it. They was just constantly getting in their own way. So I would say about 80% of my job was to literally teach these people how to get out of their own way. They would pay me for that. People would pay me a lot of money to teach them how to get out of their own way. And even though I say it in that context, for them, they were receiving fitness education and guidance and consistency through my teachings. But for me, it was teaching them how to get out of their own way because they already had the tools they needed to be healthy and live healthier. They had the resources. They just didn't have the mindset to do it. And that's what I was there for. And whether I was teaching someone how to lift heavy or eat correctly, it was me teaching them how to step away from the person that is an imposter in their life and get out of their own way. So let's continue to break the silence and seek help and have an open dialogue about this thing. That's the first thing we can do about it. Identify it and then have an open dialogue about it. And once we do that, we realize that we have now normalized this thing we call the imposter syndrome. So the last piece I want to go into here is how we can benefit from it. Like I said before, a lot of things in life is about how we go about responding to it. There's two sides to every coin. There's a perspective about everything. There's a lot of pros to imposter syndrome. There are some cons, but ultimately, we need to use these things to benefit us. If we know these things aren't going away, then we need to figure out how we can use it to benefit our lives rather than have it as a limitation. What surprised me the most is when I was researching the imposter syndrome and just getting some background knowledge about it, a lot of articles were telling me that some of the most successful people in the world struggle from imposter syndrome. Why is that? Why is that really successful entrepreneurs and other business people or people in different creative fields struggle from imposter syndrome? Why do they always have a feeling of inadequacy when they're clearly at the top of the game or recognized as pioneers in their field? Why is that the best of the best feel like they're not good enough all the time? There's got to be a reason for it. And what I found was this idea of imposter syndrome is very normal. It's normal to feel like you've done nothing at all when you've done it all to other people. It's a mixture of this ambition and this drive to continue to get better, to do more, to improve, to overcome discomfort. And in those feelings, I realized that these really successful people always feel like they're not good enough because they feel like there's so much more to accomplish. There's so much more to do, so much more impact they can have. And knowing that there's always someone out there that's smarter than you, that knows more, that has more resources, but somehow you're the one who were able to figure it out. And that leads you to have an imposter syndrome because I wasn't the smartest, I wasn't the fastest, I wasn't the most educated, I wasn't the most nimble, I didn't have the best upbringing, but somehow I'm still able to do this thing exceptionally well. But in the back of my mind, I know that I'm not really supposed to be here. The cards weren't right for me to be here, but I'm here. And I can see how successful people have that mindset because there's a lot of other factors that lead to success than just having everything set up correctly for you. Some things you got to grind for, make a way for. And some of these people have done it exceptionally well. But it doesn't save them from feeling like an imposter in their own lives. We can use imposter syndrome to push us. Use those feelings of not being good enough to push you to find out how can you learn about the thing that you are feeling inadequate about. That statement came off a little rugged. So I'm going to say it again. We can use imposter syndrome to push us to learn about the things that we feel overly inadequate about. It will push us to do more, learn more, find out more, ask more questions, problem solve at a much higher rate. Imposter syndrome can truly push us to find out more about something because it has become a part of our lives. When we are dealing with a lot of things around us, or we take on new projects or new roles, sometimes we feel like we're not good enough in that role yet. So instead of feeling like you're not good enough, or someone's going to find out that you're not good enough, take that time to become good enough. Everything can be learned with patience. If there's something you don't know, I ask you to ask better questions. Problem solve. Find other resources that can give you the education you need. Become a star in your role. Embrace the role. Embrace the discomfort of the circumstances. So instead of feeling like you don't belong, understand that you're already in it. And the only thing you can do about being already in that situation is to make the best of it. It doesn't mean you're not going to feel like an imposter, but instead what that idea is it pushing you to learning and to improving within who you are already. You might surprise yourself on the impact you can have. Now that I understand what this thing really is, and that is a very real and normal thing, I'm going to push to learning how I can use this thing to impact other people, how I can use it in my life to become a better version of myself, and how I can use it to really learn more and educate myself more so that I can give more value to my clients and the people I come in contact with. I want to teach others about this thing, imposter syndrome. I want to have open conversations. I want to be able to join conversations about things around this topic. Nothing's worse than wanting to be in a conversation that you feel like you're inadequate to be in. Let's take this time to educate ourselves, to become more knowledgeable, to ask more questions so we can join those conversations, so we can be valued members of those communities. Use this fear of not knowing to set you on a path of knowing. And I want to tell you that it's okay to not be able right now. It's okay to not feel capable right now. It's okay to not feel like you're acting in the best version of yourself. It's okay to not be the best leader for your team or people around you or your family right now. It's okay to feel like an imposter in your own life. What you do about it is a whole nother ballgame. Let's take the imposter syndrome and put it on its head. If you're not good enough, that's cool. If you remain in that space, that's the damage. That's the thing that you're hurting yourself with. If you don't feel like you deserve to be somewhere, it's normal. If you stay in that mindset and that mind frame, then there's an accountability thing that you have to deal with. I want to encourage you to take this time to learn, to apply yourself, and to accept that you don't know everything, but have an overwhelming willingness to learn. Thank you, everyone who tuned in for this week of the Unnatural Born Leader podcast. I know I rambled on a little bit in this podcast, but I want to introduce this topic and talk about it passionately and really give some background research and concepts to what this thing is. It's really surprising my life. I'm really excited to go forward understanding what this thing really is. So don't forget that positivity is contagious and attitude is truly everything. Thank you for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys next week. Have a good one.